Hello, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited to introduce you to our special guest, Anna Rova. You guys, today you get to hear from her, and she is on a mission to redefine what female success truly is. Anna is a feminine embodiment coach, and whether you're male or female listening to this, you are going to get so much value and learn something new from today's session. Anna, thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Magdalene. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Oh, absolutely. Now, let's just jump into this. So you're a female embodiment coach. Can you talk to us about how you got into this line of work? What is your background?
Well, first of all, just a quick correction, feminine embodiment coach.
Feminine.
Yeah, I mean, everybody makes this mistake. That's not even, I mean, it is a thing, but it's very unknown and uncommon. It's a modality, I think, that's just emerging. So it's totally fine to make mistakes. So how did I come to this body of work? It's really interesting. I never saw myself as a coach. In fact, I had a lot of kind of resistance and suspicion to being a coach. And now that I say it, everything kind of comes back to it. And one of the reasons, or the main reason, is because my background is actually in online marketing. I worked for a company in personal growth, one of the biggest companies in online personal growth space, selling courses and everything. And I became one of their top marketers. And so I was that career-driven woman. You know, by the time I was like 26, I was running multi-million-dollar projects and teams and things like that. So very, very, rapid career growth. Excuse me. And so I worked for about 6 months in the coaching division, the coaching industry. And I don't know. And it was perhaps because I was young and naive and still learning. I didn't understand the really deep, not only the really deep marketing, how could I put it, philosophies and principles, so to say, because when you're young, I was out of college, and in like 3 years I catapulted, and I knew all the tricks and the gimmicks and all of the, Frank Kern and mass control and like autoresponder madness and I could spit them out like that because I was bright and shiny. But I think what I was lacking is experience and real depth to sit down and really think things through. And I think this is something that our generation is very much lacking, especially in the online world. It's very easy to, just get excited with a shiny, bright object, copy paste. We're a copy paste generation, especially in the online world. We want those quick we want, go to 6 figures in like freaking 2 weeks. And here's how to do it. Like, that's all bullshit. It doesn't happen like that. So anyways, so I was kind of, I don't know, because of the lack of experience, but also depth and just seeing, and a lot of these spaces are indeed using copy paste techniques. I just got disappointed. I don't know. I saw coaches just copying and pasting things, and I just didn't really connect. Something wasn't clicking. And so, when I left my job and I started my own thing, which was a podcast and something that was out of my passion, also based on personal experience. And when I started just with a podcast, by the way, and I didn't know how this is going to be a business. I went the way that they're not recommending to go, and because start a business, like have a product and sell it, actually have customers, which I totally advocate for. But we kind of took a leap of faith, and so we started the podcast, and 6 months down the line, we were kind of looking for a model of a business model that would make this work. And we were trying different things. Should be courses, and should we be selling something on the websites, podcast sponsorships, things like that. And then I stumbled upon, through my podcast, actually, we started with a podcast, and through the podcast, I stumbled upon my mentor who was offering a feminine embodiment coaching certification. And it was just totally random. It was through a podcast guest that she recommended that I follow this woman. I went to her website and I saw that, she offered this certification. I'm like, that's interesting. So I signed up for her webinar. And In the webinar, I connected to her a lot, and then we jumped on a call to actually talk, about my application and whether it's the right fit for me. And I just totally landed and resonated with this woman on such a deep level. And I understood now, looking back, I understand why and what happened. I saw an example of a coach that's in integrity, that does things in her way, that is not a copy paste. And I really saw someone that I wanted to be like, and my total world has shifted from this kind of, and even today I get like podcast guest requests and things. I'm like, oh my God, this sounds like a template. Whenever I see something that looks like a template, I run away from it. And it's not to say that that person doesn't have any depth or whatever. They absolutely do. We all do. But I think like we are so used to following a guru, following someone who can, and I, by no means, I have mentors and I don't call them gurus, but I have people I look up to. But those people teach me how to think. They don't feed me, like I'm not a little bird there to feed me information and formulas and whatever. They absolutely give us formulas, but they teach me how to think. And my mentor, specifically feminine embodiment coaching, she told me how to feel. And the depth first, especially for women, and then direction second. So that's how I got to coaching. So I went through the certification. It was the best decision ever. I dropped and I worked through my resistance and my limiting beliefs about coaching. How can I do this? Yeah. And then in those 6 months, everything transformed. I got my first client even before I finished the certification. And now I have a full-on coaching practice.
Wow, that is so amazing to hear. And I love the fact that, you were in marketing, a completely different industry, but you felt like something was missing. And it was kind of like the universe just kind of brought this new opportunity to you and you were willing to take that chance. That's amazing. And the fact that once you stepped into it, you were like, this feels right. Like I look up to my mentor. You already had a client before you had the certification. Like that just goes to show that you were on the right path for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's true.
And so you talk about in your coaching business, you want to redefine what female success really is. Can you explain like what that means and why that's kind of your, key practice or, why you want to accomplish that so deeply?
Yeah, so I have to mention that my initial message was redefining female success. It kind of still is, but since then I pivoted, and that's just a normal, normal growth in business. Initially, I started with this whole redefining female success because what I saw as a young woman in the world of women and personal growth for women is like, just go, just do, just make it happen. You have dreams. Now's the time. The future is female. Just freaking go for it and just forget about everything and just go. That didn't really resonate with me. To say I am one of those women, I have a lot of passion. I have a lot of drive. I have a lot of ambition. Like I'm on a freaking mission and I'm like a train. So, and obviously like this, it took me a few years. It took me many years to discover this, that something wasn't clicking, that I'm running on engines constantly and that's exhausting for me. And yeah, and I just like through my own research for interviews with women, obviously on my podcast, I've interviewed more than like 150 women. Now I've interviewed men. So it was a lot of work and a lot of personal experience. And I realized that the message that we're given today, especially, we live in the patriarchy and like men are just sitting there and wanting for women to be in the kitchen and like masculinity is toxic and all of these different things, they're just not true. Some of them are true, but that's not the general reality where we live in. And even worse, that's just being fed to young women and all women around the world. That creates a lot of resentment, that creates a lot of blame. And I just don't see that this is a solution to living in the world that all of us want to live, where we live together with men. We have amazing and strong men with us. And that also stems from, just realizing that men and women are different, and not denying that, physically, emotionally, energetically, spiritually. Like, there's a lot of differences in us. There is more actually commonalities than differences. That's absolutely the case. When they did research and compared men to women in terms of just brain functions and whatever, like, there's so much more commonalities than differences, but those very few differences dictate how we live our lives. And that actually got apparent to me to 100%, 150, and completely changed the game and really grounded me into this viewpoint and perspective when I got pregnant. And if you ask me, like, you can compare anything, women can do anything that men can do, and men can do anything that women can do. But the only difference between us that is paramount and will never change, no matter how we try, is that women get pregnant and give birth and then nurse their babies. And men, fortunately or unfortunately, can't do that. Like, you could argue both sides. And, a lot of women sit there and blame, like, not blame, but really kind of use this card against men, saying that, oh, I'm not going to look at you when you're going to give birth, and like, I have to get pregnant and I have to go through the first trimester, and then I have to give birth, and then I have to nurse, like throwing it into their faces without realizing, like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing a woman can do. And just to share with you a story, when I gave birth to my daughter, so my daughter is like a year and 1 month. I never wanted to have children. And it's not like never. I was never one of those women who like, I want to have children and get married and this is it. Like, I didn't even think about that. I knew that's going to happen someday. And actually, in fact, most of the women today are this way, and then they completely disregard that part of their life, and then they come to coach with me in their late 30s and 40s because they're like, shit, I've just disregarded 20 years of my life when I focused on my career, and now I don't have a man, and the clock is ticking, and Anna, save me and fix me. It doesn't work like this. But just to give you an example, and so when I gave birth to my daughter, my sister called me up and said, congratulations, blah, blah. And she's like, your daughter is your biggest accomplishment. The fact that you gave birth and, this was your biggest accomplishment. And at the time I was like, what? What are you talking about? This is like greatest accomplishment. No, my greatest accomplishment is like my business and who am I as a woman. And like this seemed so derogatory, almost like an insult. And now, looking back, after 6 months of having her, I'm just looking at her every day and I'm like, yeah, you are my greatest accomplishment. And just realizing that I, as a woman, can actually grow a human in my body. I still look at her and I can't believe that she came out of me, out of nothing, pretty much. It's like magic, I mean, obviously there's science into that, but it's just incredible. And I'm like, you know what? This is it. This is as primal and as raw and as life-changing and as important as it goes, because everything can come and go. My career, my life, like my accomplishments, my degrees and my certifications, which are obviously the external outer world, the masculine success, so to say, that we are sold that we as women really need to achieve, that actually doesn't matter. And in fact, if I attach myself too much to it, when that's stripped away, then who am I? So I'm working with a lot of women who like don't know who they are behind all the masculine ideas of success, of like when you strip down all the degrees, certifications and career positions and even multi-billion dollars, whatever, it's like who you are. They don't know who they are because they've been running on these masculine engines their whole life. So to answer your question, sorry, that was kind of a long answer. So that's why I started with this mission of redefining female success, of like, you have a female body, and exploring that and rediscovering that and working with your femininity as a feminine essence woman is one of the greatest things you can do, because then when you learn, and that's a skill, a lot of women tell me, I don't know how to be a woman. And there's a lot of superficial things on top of this, and I think that's why there's a lot of resistance. Oh, you need to wear nails and short skirts and whatever. Although that has its advantages as well, which I can talk about, but this is obviously a business podcast. So anyways, when you understand that there are some deep running currents that run through your body as a woman, and how you operate in the world and show up energetically, emotionally, physically, then that just changes the game. And so that's the whole thing about redefining female success, that feminine and female success is different to male success. And I've just been exploring and really discovering what are those differences and what really satisfies women as women, because as we work with our femininity, we realize we don't need to prove anything to anyone. And the art of surrender and the art of just being is one of the most important skills a woman can learn, because it's not in the head. It's in the feel of it. And that's what we want. This could be applied to men, but men are just wired and built differently. And it all comes down, to the easiest example that I can give. It all comes down to when you have babies. The roles, no matter how traditional they seem to be, it's like, oh my God, we live in 2020, new decade, everything is being redefined, whatever. Well, yes, but the fundamental, primal and raw things of women give birth and nurse their babies, and in that first 6 months to a year, forget it. You can push and do everything, but you're just going to burn out and not be happy, and that leads to general unhappiness in your family and in the world. And until that changes, which will probably never happen, I hope, but I don't know, until, men can give birth and get pregnant, that's never going to change.
What a powerful perspective, though, because it's true that it is pushed, women hustle, focus on the career. That's only... Sorry, the dog's barking. That's only what you can focus on in this day and age, when there is that true desire for women to also have that flexibility for their family and relationships. That's a really important aspect. And I think what's so beautiful about, being an entrepreneur or running your own business is you do have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to, involving your family into your work life a little bit more and building some of those more sustainable relationships. So I really appreciate you just touching on that. My next question would be, what have you found, through coaching and podcasting, really holds women back the most from finding fulfillment and purpose, whether it's in their personal life or in their career workplace?
So what holds women back the most from finding fulfillment?
Finding fulfillment and purpose, because we seem pulled in all these different directions, but what do you think is just holding us back so much?
I think it's I call them the lies of female success. I have a whole webinar that's 1 hour about this. Women listen to this and they're like, aha moment, light bulb, I don't have to do it all. And so I'll just talk about these lies. One lie is, you should do it all. And not only you should do it all, but you can do it all. So a very interesting situation today where women are not only expected to do everything that a woman was doing before, which is, as I said, birth babies, nurse babies, everything, keep the household together, be in charge of the laundry and the trips and the kids and the natural emotional atmosphere in the house and the decor, all of these things. But we're also expected to play the masculine game and have the career and have the business and make the money and, just go and hustle and take care of our finances and all of that. And by no mistake, we can do it all. We in the sense that we have the ability to do it all. And I think women all over the world have proven it many times. But the question is, do we want to? And do we have to? And so that is one of the biggest things that I think that's holding women back. Now, I think a lot of women actually agree with that. They wouldn't disagree, but now how we go about it is different. Some women say, because I now want to, some women go into this perspective, now it's 50-50. They basically distribute the workload in the house and, at work and finances and everything. They just distribute everything 50-50. In some families and relationships, it's all switched. So, for example, the dads are the ones, or the men are the ones who stay at home, take care of the house, and the woman works, and so on and so on. I have my own, in the niche. So I'm in a niche. And that's what I figured out for myself. And that's the women who I attract into my work and my clients. And honestly, I think that majority of women would be happier in this structure. However, everybody's free to make their own choices. But I feel like women who come to me, they've tried the other ways and it just doesn't work. Simply because it's just exhausting. Unless you really know that that's your thing, and that's totally fine. So, I'm not here to judge anyone or tell women what to do. They're just attracted to my perspective and how I believe and things should work. And as a coach, obviously, I don't tell women what to do. They find their own way. So that's what's holding them back, just thinking and even trying to just do it all. And when they try to do that, it kind of works for a short while. But after that, they feel resentment. They feel a lot of blame. They become angry. They're not happy. They're exhausted. Their health is going down. And it just all goes down, and then it explodes. And that's not a good recipe for anyone. So I think that's actually the main thing. If I were to really put it down, kind of, what's holding them from that fulfillment. And then from that, I think also just the idea. The second idea is that we are the same, as I said, and not knowing. I think that's another thing that's keeping women from fulfillment, is not knowing the difference, not seeing the difference and not feeling the difference, treating their husbands like they would treat themselves, and not realizing the polarity that is at play constantly in relationship, in attraction, in relationship, in the bedroom, between men and women. I mean, there's some fundamental things that are just at play at all times, that are dictated by our biology, by our, differences in how we show up energetically, emotionally, and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I really appreciate you sharing that, because my mind right now is being turned in multiple different ways that it hasn't really thought about before. Because it's true that some women are naturally more ambitious. I feel like I would definitely fall into that category. But I also resonate with what you're saying of, we can't be everywhere and do everything all the time, because women will experience that burnout, or they won't feel as content and satisfied with what they're doing if they're trying to do everything that a man can do. And it's true that if you want to run your own business, that's completely fine. But if you want to stay in the home, you would rather have a family instead of have a career until you're 80, that's fine too. And so it all just depends on the woman. So I really appreciate you sharing that. So my next question would be, how can a woman, or even a man who's listening to this, get more in touch with themselves and find a deeper connection with who they are? Kind of like what we just said, of some women are more ambitious than others. Like, how can we kind of connect with who we are as a person?
So that's a great question. And I think a lot of people might be misinterpreting my work, or, the work of people who, there's different, obviously, layers to this work. But what I've kind of realized and came to the conclusion is that, first and foremost, we're all humans. So, we should look at ourselves when we ask ourselves questions. How can we connect to who we are, and how do we know deep down who we are and what fulfills us and what's our purpose or whatever? That's really about just being a human and doing the work, which means so many different things. It means dealing with all the shit that our parents have portrayed and caused and everything. I mean, they did the best they could, but I've heard a phrase, if you had parents, save money for a psychotherapist, pretty much. But especially like now in our generation, our parents went through so much trauma. And I mean, especially, I come from Eastern Europe, so that was very dramatic what my dad went through. And like, baby boomers in the US and everybody's just doing their best. And when I healed my relationship with my parents, with my father in particular, everything changed. And so I think the first layer that we need to look at is really personal growth and as humans. So it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, there's stuff not working in your life, you got to fix it. Like, there's always a solution. And in fact, if your life is not working in the way you want it to work, then it's a mirror. And there's always ways around it, through it. And there's always options, and you can have the powerful transformation. So that's what I would say first. But then second, I think it's how we show up. Now, men and women can start at the same place in terms of who am I as a human? What motivates me? What fulfills me? What are some of the limiting beliefs that I've taken about the world and, who I am? Am I good enough or not? But then if you dig deeper, I think the second, I guess I would call it a second layer, is really zooming in on who you are as a woman and who you are as a man. Knowing that you are in a masculine body, or you are in a feminine body or a female body. I mean, there is a fundamental difference. Mm-hmm. And then really going and exploring that, like, how do I show up as a man? How do I show up as a woman? What drives that? Because I mean, they say gender is a social construct. I don't really believe in that 100%. I think gender is as much nurture as much nature. I don't know what's the percentage there. And I actually talk about these subjects all the time on my podcast. I interview men and women, experts, authors, like men who do men's work, women who do women's work. So, I'm constantly asking questions and I don't have all the answers. But what I know is that we do show up differently. And when we learn those skills of who am I as a woman, and particularly through the lens of relationships, that's so important. But then after that, that also bleeds into all areas of life, because we do show up differently as men and women in all areas of life, whether it's business or not, a career, whether it's family, whether it's friends, everything. Because for example, a woman is driven by her monthly cycles. And I used to be that woman who's like, I wish my cycle would go away. Like, literally, that inhibits my productivity. And there's so many women today that think like that as well. And it's so totally normal. They're like, well, first day of my period, like, I'm going, I have a meeting, that doesn't matter, I'm totally going to disregard it. Well, in essence, what that does, and that's a very specific example here, you're denying your own nature. You're denying the fact of death and rebirth in your body that happens every month. And so when we're disconnected from our own nature as women and as men, and obviously men go through their own cycles, but when we are disconnected from that and we are chasing some masculine success, or in general, whatever success is to you, goal, we're not living in truth. And I think women listening and men listening, that we all inherently know, we feel that difference, how we talk to each other, how do we interact with the world. Men are physically stronger, women are physically weaker. Again, we bleed every month. Like, there's so many things that drive us as men, as women, and it's just different. So I think when you ask me, how do we know who we are? Well, first and foremost, just to sum it up, you look at yourself as a human and you understand that you need to kind of work. You need to do the work, and it's not easy. And then second is looking at that work and as yourself as a human through the perspective of what body am I in. And I know there is, obviously non-binary people and all of that, but I'm talking about, which is the majority, in fact, of people who have for example, male body and they identify as a man. Mm-hmm. And women who have a female body and identify as a woman, and just really diving into that and working with it.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing that because, again, it's one of those things where we don't take the time to really think about these things too often. And so just sitting into this conversation, it's really eye-opening. And so I guess to wrap up our conversation today, Anna, why do you really think that, your line of work as a coach in this type of niche in this industry is so vital for this day and age? Have you seen, what type of transformation have you seen with the women that you coach?
Oh, it's night and day before they come to work with me, and after they're finished. I mean, the work never finishes, to be honest with you, but the main thing is, I think, and that's why my message is so powerful, is because, and I think honestly, I'm like, how did this happen? How did I get there? But honestly, I've hit the holy grail of, if you talk about marketing and like building a business and having a really strong polarizing message, and just looking at my marketing background and knowing what I know, and from reading all the books, it's like, I read this book, by the way, amazing book, Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz, one of the best books about marketing, and realizing how, when you have a service or a product and you have an audience with a need, it's just building that bridge to that product. And what he really says there is, you can't manufacture a want, a desire. You can really just work with that desire. To manufacture and to create a desire in a mass is extremely hard, and geniuses can do it. Unfortunately, we're all not geniuses. So the fastest, which I think as business people, as entrepreneurs, what we can do is we need to find that essential want, that desire that people have, and then, which is a pain, or something that they really want, and then channeling that into your product, and showing how your product or service can actually solve that. So I did that, and I'm just in the, I don't want to say in the beginning, but I'm, when you're digging for a gold, how do you call it, a gold well or something, I'm like sitting on top of gold, and I know it. And I know it because I see it in my clients over and over again. And when they message me, they want to work with me, they're like totally mind blowing, because I've managed to, whatever we've just been talking to, I've managed to explain it to them. When they realize it, they're like, holy shit, that is the problem. And not, the fact that I'm expected to do it all, but not only that. And then, as I mentioned too, I started with redefining female success, but then I pivoted and shifted, because I realized, women want to work on living in a different way as women. And that's another kind of tip for being an entrepreneur in my journey, is to really tap into the pain that your customer has. If you can solve the pain that they have, then your business is guaranteed a success. There's so many services and products that kind of just, they're not essential. So if you have a pain that you can solve in an amazing way, then people are going to pay whatever it takes to get it done, to get it solved. And so I found, it took me a while to get there. It's a whole process, but I realized that I need to go for the pain. Like if I want to build this as a business and I want to do it fast and I want to achieve the results that I want to achieve, I got to go for what hurts. And what hurts right now is women in their 30s and 40s realizing that, oh my God, I have everything I wanted in terms of career and business and whatever. I bought myself the house, I bought myself the car, I bought myself whatever. And the only thing that I don't have is a man in my life and to create babies with, because fortunately, maybe unfortunately, we still need men to create baby. Like it takes two to create a baby. I think it's fortunate. And that's why we really need each other. Biology puts everything in its places. So anyways, so that's the pain. And it's a very deep pain. Women, once you hit 35, you just sit there at night and you are counting your days, because you realize that as a woman, time's going backwards for you in terms of if you don't have children. And that's such a big pain. And if you're young, you won't understand it. But if you're older, then you come to a place where you've done it. You have the money and everything, but you're empty. And you realize that what's really important in life is actually your relationships and pretty much your family, because then after, as I said before, after you strip down everything else, that's what matters. And that's why we do what we do. That's why we have the career that we have, to have the experiences to share it with our loved ones. And to have, for women specifically, I found that pain. And not only that, but also the fact that women want a masculine man. So that's my message, actually. Now I coach women and I help them attract a masculine man. Wow. And that is something that was really eye-opening for me and for my audience. But I knew it deep down inside, but I tapped into something that's there from the beginning of times. Women feel and yearn and have a craving for a provider and a protector in their life who can come in, sweep them off their feet, and claim them as women. And again, this all puts everything in its own places as soon as, we start thinking about babies and families and so on. Because when you get pregnant, all of the feminist slogans of future is female, like, they go out of the window when you're puking down, when you're laying down on the bathroom floor and throwing up because you can't do anything, and then you're not chained to a baby. Like, I don't like to use that word because it's the most beautiful experience I've had, nursing, breastfeeding my baby. Mm-hmm. But it's just the reality of things. And the sooner women accept that and actually find the beauty in it, the sooner everything just transforms. So I, first of all, help women. I just give them permission, to actually want a masculine man, to want a man to take care of them, which is such a primal, raw, fundamental desire of the feminine. And on the flip side, the good news is that that's also a desire of the masculine. Like, he wants, and when I tell this to women, they're like looking at me, and again, there's like that holy shit aha moment that men want to take care of you. They want to be there for you. And when I interviewed Chris Reynolds, who you mentioned to me before, and that's why I talk to men on the podcast, and they're like, I'm in service of the feminine. I want to be your hero. I'm here to protect you, to provide you for you and our children, and that fulfills me. And so it's a really beautiful dynamic of polarity, something that I talk about. When people understand this, everything just comes into its places, because what we crave is polar opposite. But then when we come together in union, we give each other what we want. And that's how beautiful, amazing, fruitful relationships are built. And so I help women get there. And when they get there, I help them get into the best position to attract that masculine man, working with their femininity. When they relax and surrender into the feminine, feminine side of this spectrum, and they realize how to work with this and how to really surrender, then naturally, they don't even need to do anything. They naturally attract this kind of men. And like, my clients say, it's day and night for a woman to know that she's just, she's ready. And she's just is being sought after, and that men want to help her, not only her partner, but everyone else. I just interviewed a client yesterday. She was like, I didn't do anything. I just stopped, and there was this guy behind me. He got out of the car, checked out my tires, and said, hey, your tires are, low? I don't even know. I started driving a car a year ago. But like, he fixed all her tires, and asked her like to look. And she's like, this is amazing, So to be in that space, to let go of the need to be independent and self-sufficient and proving everything to everyone, there's no need for that. And in fact, if you're constantly in that, and I know women live in all their lives, unfortunately, in that state, that's exhausting, and that leads to burnout, instead of learning that as a woman, you have feminine power that goes beyond just surrender. I mean, I'm not even going to talk about the bedroom and sexual attraction and everything, but yeah, it's everything. Does that answer your question?
Guys, and that's so beautiful. It really is. It's really beautiful. And the thing is, for any of you right now, and this message is resonating with you as you're listening to Anna, down in the show notes of the podcast, I'm going to leave all the links to Anna's podcast, her website. That way you're able to work with her. You can listen to her free 1-hour webinar, which I tuned into earlier today, and I absolutely loved it. So Anna, thank you so much for just sharing this message with all of us today. I really appreciate it.
No worries, Madison. Thank you so much. I'm very passionate about this, and I could talk about this for hours, but thanks for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Absolutely. And we'll chat again soon.